Hey everybody, DJ here, and this is a special video. I don't usually do this. This is an unboxing video, so I'm going to be showing off the new 3090 that I just got delivered and comparing it to the Radeon 7s that I have, and I will be also showing you how I'm putting it in my system. I'll be showing you my system and the sort of space that I need, comparing it to the Radeon 7s in size and all that, and also showing you some render results from some really quick testing and benchmarking, and just to tell you overall my experience so far with this card, and just let you know how it's going. I'm more of a CGI guy, so I'm going to be showing you some fairly low quality video from my cell phone, but hopefully you'll get something out of it. And I know that some of my subscribers wanted to see this, so without further ado, here is the unboxing. Okay, guys, so here we go. This is going to be the unboxing of my PNY 3090. I have my Radeon 7 here. You can see it. It is pretty much brand new. I'm going to be selling this thing eventually. So, you know, there it is. And there's my Troll 2 poster that my friend gave me. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. And you'll have to forgive me about the video quality. I don't really have a video thing set up in here. Not now and probably not ever, because that's not really what this channel is for, but let's go ahead and do this thing. Jeez. I guess I don't know how to open boxes. Okay, so here we go. Here's the box. There's the XLR8 by PNY 3090. And let's check this thing out. Okay, so we have another bit of another sticker here that we'll have to take off. Here we go. So here it is. Got the quick install guide here. So that's by Nvidia. I got some info for you if you don't really know what you're doing. You can read through this thing. And then here's the card. So pretty beefy. It actually doesn't feel that heavy. I know a lot of people are saying it's really heavy. This actually feels heavier for some reason than the 3090. Okay, so now we have it out of the box, and you can see it's the triple fan style. The heat sinks are pretty beefy. Like, that's pretty big. This is apparently supposed to be a triple width card, which you'll see in a moment that it fits perfectly fine. Oh, and by the way, this is a playing mat that I helped design back in my card gaming days when I worked at a card gaming company. So here we go. Oh yeah, and that's if you can't tell, that is Big Trouble in Little China. Pretty awesome. So taking a look at this, so here's the, you know, that's where you connect it to your PCIe slot. You can see here on the back end here, we have a couple of the HDMI inputs, plus the, I think there's a HDMI mini in here as well, or a display adapters, and then another HDMI. So it's got enough for what I need, which is completely fine. And let's look at it compared to the Radeon 7, which was a big card when I first got it. But now that I have this gigantic beast here, you can see it's quite a bit different. The length overall is a bit more. So you can see there, we got about that much more length on it. So if you have a small case, this is going to be a problem. I have a giant case, which I'll show you in a minute, but you can see here that it's a little bit longer. It's about I would say about an inch and a quarter, or something like that, longer. And it's quite a bit thicker, as you can imagine. If we sort of stack them up, you can see that the Radeon 7 is quite a bit shorter than the other as far as the overall PCIe width. This is a 2-slot, this is a 3-slot. So there's that. So we turn it over on the back here, you can see that there's the power slots, or for your 2 8-pin here. They were talking about everybody needing like a 12-pin adapter for these things, but it looks like they opted out of that and they just went straight for the 2 8s
here. So same power draw, but they dropped the 12-pin adapter that you would need for some of those other reference cards and stuff like that. Looks pretty cool. I know that the RGB thing is a big deal for a lot of people. I'm not really a big fan of that kind of thing. I just got this because it's PNY. They're a good brand. They make all the workstation cards for Nvidia. So um, all the reviews say it was pretty good, and we're going to pop it into the computer and take a look. But first, I'm going to show you what my computer looks like. So if you're even considering buying one of these, you see what I have so that it's not kind of an unfair comparison. So here's my rig. You can see right here I have the, this right here is a 3960 Threadripper from AMD. I've got 64 gigs of RAM in there. And you can see that there's the 280 EVGA 280 CLC with a push-pull system, so it's got 4 fans on there. And here's one of the Radeon VIIs, and this is the ASRock TRX40 Creator. So it actually has 4 dual slot PCIe inputs, and behind each of these is where you can put a SSD. So the M.2 SSDs go right in there. And this also has a really cool function where you can see right here there is a place to put a vertical graphics card, because this is actually built to also house a second computer right here in the bottom. And I got it mostly because of its ability to basically cool. It's basically an open air case. You can see up here there's sort of like a grating, and then it's got this space here. And there's actually a piece of glass that goes on the front, so there's a big space for all of the air to escape. So the original idea was to make this a render station, and I had a couple projects lined up, but the pandemic happened. So I was going to put a lot more of these graphics cards in here to do a couple projects that I was slated to work on this year, but that didn't really happen. So that was the main reason for buying this rig, but I'm glad I got it because these new 3090s are quite large, and I'm glad that I have this case to put it in and this sort of motherboard to handle it, because this does have 4.0 PCIe 16 slots, but it's only in the first and the third PCIe slot, because that's probably where they expect you to put your GPUs. So this one right here, even though this is not a 4.0 card, that's a 4.0 slot, and I actually am probably going to sell this one too, since the 3090 is basically going to replace both of these cards. But you can see it sits right underneath the cooling system and the CPU here. So it's actually better for me to stick it right here, the 3090, so that it sort of sits down below. So that's kind of the idea that I'm going to be going for here.
So just a note here, after I actually installed everything, I did end up putting it in the top slot because the width was too much and it was actually bumping into this little input into the motherboard here.
The other cool thing about this case, because this is the ASA Ragnarok, so it's a really large case. It's very heavy. It's like, I don't know, it's somewhere around 1 metric ton. But down in there is where the actual power supply is, and behind this plate right here, or this piece, that's where all of the hard drives are set. So all of the mechanical drives are back there, and all of the other stuff is right here in the front. So I got my other case fans up there. I have a case fan here, and then I have my CPU cooling fans right over there. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this sucker in, and the next part of the video is going to basically be me just testing out the card and seeing how things run after I get the drivers up and running, and I'll let you know my first thoughts when I do that.
Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the test results here. So I have right now an Optix running for the render engine comparison video that I did recently, where I did this perfume ad looking thing with a water simulation and all that. Um, it's currently running Optix, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I would just want to show you here. I ran a couple tests, and this was one of them that I did, and this is LuxCore here. And if you'll remember, the LuxCore, basically, I was able to get to around 217 samples before I just kind of stopped it from rendering on my Radeon VIIs, because it was just taking too long to get to the 512 that I did cycles and pro render on. So I let this one run until it got to about 217 samples, and I stopped it, and look at that speed. We went from, I think it was roughly 30 minutes. Let me just pull up, I have it written down here. So on LuxCore, it took about 35 minutes to do 217 samples. And here we got to about 217 samples in a third of that time, less than a third of the time. So um, definitely LuxCore is, if you're looking for LuxCore to be your engine, it's incredibly fast. And this is actually much faster than ProRender and Cycles so far, even using Optix. This was able to render at an incredible speed compared to the others, and I can't be happier with this because it means that there's going to be less issues with LuxCore, and I've been running into a lot of problems with them or with that engine using the OpenCL settings. So that was a little bit that's really great for me, and I'm really happy that I can now render out a really high quality scene and even an animation using LuxCore without it taking so long. So I'm very, very happy about that result. Now, I also did Pro Render. I'm not going to pull it up. Basically, it looked exactly the same as it did on the test before with the Radeon 7s, and it took about the same time, so I really don't need to go too much into that. So we're going to take a look here at cycles, and I don't have the CUDA render comparison up right now, which is fine. It basically looked the same, but it looked like it was slightly taking a little bit longer than the two Radeon 7s together, and we're not talking about that much difference. It's only like, a minute or two longer, and we're talking about one graphics card versus, two of them running at the same time with all the heat being dissipated and everything else. So, there are some gains there. But I was a little bit disappointed because I saw a lot of reviewers were saying that how it scaled, it should have been, depending on the test or the benchmark, it should be roughly 2 times or 2.5 times the Radeon 7, which is roughly where it's at. Um, this one just took a little bit longer, and there could be other optimizations that I could do. But basically, what we're looking at here is we're looking at a difference between two different optics renders. So I have talked about this in the past that optics could be used well sometimes, and I did run into a lot of issues with it on my 2070 and in the early builds of the optics rendering engine. And since I do more higher level stuff here on my personal workstation than I do on my work workstation. I wouldn't really use optics too much on the laptop workstation anyway, just because it's I use Eevee a lot more on there for rendering stuff out, or other sort of render engines. But I wanted to check it out on this one since I hadn't really touched it in a while, and I'm really happy with the results. So I have two different render tests here. I have a slot 1 and a slot 2, and you can see here that it took about 16 minutes to do an optics render, and it's pretty clean. There's a couple little areas that is a little bit noisy, but it's generally okay. And I wanted to see if I could half the time of my render. So I just basically reduced the samples down to 256 instead of 512. And basically, this is the result. So there's it is really clean, and it's really amazing to me that there's obviously some change in the pixels here because there are more samples in one versus the other. But when you back out and you check against the two, you can see I'm going between slot 1 and slot 2 here. There's really not that much of a difference. There's only some noticeable difference way down here, and that's only because I've been looking at it for a while. But, a client or somebody like that is really not going to notice that. And for the amount of savings that you're getting here, 8, or 9 minutes versus 16, if you're rendering an animation, that's a huge amount of power draw that you're saving, and a lot more time that you're saving on your rendering. So I'm really happy with the results here, and I think that a lot of people, if they were to get one of these newer Ampere RTX cards, will be very surprised with the speed change. And just to give you an example, the optics render took, here for the 512 samples, it was 16 minutes and 15 seconds, almost 16 seconds. And the CUDA run was about 20 minutes. So it was a few minutes longer. I think it was more like 18 or 18 and a half or something like that. I'll have to do more tests and, give you guys the actual, details and all that later. But so far, I'm seeing that on regular CUDA, it's a little bit longer. It takes a little bit longer than the two Radeon 7s. But on CUDA, it seems to be much faster. Or sorry, on Optics, it seems to be much faster than CUDA, and you get roughly the same results if you reduce the samples by quite a bit. And I'm sure that if I ran this through another denoising filter with, another algorithm, such as the OpenCL denoiser or something like that, I'd probably end up with a little bit better results. So let's talk about some of the viewport stuff really quick. So I'm just going to turn this on to rendered here. And this is using Optix. So you can see that it's very fast. And let me just pull this over here. It's very fast, and I know because I've been using OpenCL for a while that a lot of times what you have to wait for is up here in the corner. There's a compiling OpenCL and all that kind of stuff. And with this, it's much faster. I'm able to get more immediate results, and overall, it seems to be working out very well. Um, I can't tell you how great it is. I feel like, like the thing is with Radeon 7 and the two cards I had, they were great for what I needed. And especially at the time, they were the workstation GPUs that I needed. But I did run into so many problems with driver issues and all sorts of other issues with OpenCL and these GPU uh, 3D rendering programs that honestly, it I feel like I lost a couple years of my life just with how frustrated I got with some of that stuff. And anybody who knows me having to deal with that stuff, especially in the middle to late 2019, knows that getting the Radeon 7s to work inside of Blender and some of the other programs was a nightmare and very difficult. And recently with LuxCore, knowing that I couldn't use certain nodes that are, very important to use in, doing shading and materials, it was very difficult to deal with all of that. So I'm really happy with the results so far. So hopefully this gives you some idea about, if you're really looking into buying one of these video cards. Keep in mind that the one that I got, I'll show you where you can actually buy one because I'm sure that some of you guys want to know where you can get one because it's very expensive. So if you go onto fateka.com, didn't know anything about this place. I just saw it from a website that they had some. They have some available and they're not too high above the MSRP. So there are a lot of scalpers out there. There's a lot of people who are trying to make money off of the low inventories. This 3090 for the Win Ultra Gaming that's pretty high price right there, $2,000. But those cards are usually expensive anyway. But I got a PNY. PNY is the manufacturer for the workstation graphics cards, the Quadro cards for Nvidia, and they come with 3-year warranties. So that's pretty much why I got those. They're not the prettiest thing to look at, but it's also in a case where it's a tinted, glass cover, so I'm never going to see the thing anyway, and I really don't care about RGB lights and stuff. I just care about how it works. And if you were interested in the thermals or any of the information about the speeds, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run another render really quick here so you can see what it's like. So I'm just going to pick slot 3 here. Oops. And let's send this to, we're actually going to change this to CUDA. Nope, not OpenCL, CUDA and 512. And I'm just going to start this up and I'll show you some of the live information about how it's running using MSI Afterburner. It's not as good to look at this MSI Afterburner, to be honest. I prefer or maybe I'm just used to it, but the Radeon software is really wonderful for monitoring your GPUs, and I'm going to miss that when I get rid of my two Radeon 7s. But it's a small price to pay for just overall easier usage. So let's see here. We got it running. So there we go. It's currently running. And if you look at let's actually change this to a little bit of an easier thing to look at for you guys. There we go. This one right here. So you can see right here, the boost is going up to 1920 megahertz, which, I mean, for a lot of you, it's probably not going to mean that much. But the advertised amount, if we go into this one here, I think the advertised speed is somewhere around 17 or 1800. Um, let's see here. So GPU boost clock, it says right here is 1.7. Okay. So I'm able to actually reach 1920 on the GPU. So that's I'm not sure why. I haven't done any oops, I haven't done any overclocking. I haven't done really anything to this card except for just plug it in and turn it on. And you can see right here the temps are staying really nice and low. It's at a 64 degrees right now. Um, I know some people were saying that they were getting up to like somewhere in the 80s or 90s or something when they first got theirs. So everything seems to be running pretty great. This is a really high megahertz rate here. The temperature is staying really nice and low as well. And the other thing is the fan speed. The one thing about the Radeon 7s that a lot of people talked about was how loud they are. And they are indeed loud. Which doesn't really matter if you're running like overnight renders and stuff like that, and you have a separate building or something like that. They really are great cards for what they do. I will change this right here, and I'll set this to 100. Where's the save function? Let me actually. I'm not used to looking at this one, so let me just change this one to the one that I'm kind of used to here. So let me go here, and I'm going to change the speed to there. And so it's going to ramp up the speed of the fans, and I still don't really hear it that much, especially compared to the Radeon 7s. I mean, the Radeon 7s were very loud in comparison to this. I mean, it just sounds like some of my regular case fans in there just blowing a little bit higher. And, that's really great for me because it means that at night when I'm doing renders, I don't have to hear it sometimes in the next room. But also, it's a really good way to keep your GPU temperature down if you're worried about that inside of your case. If you don't have an open airflow case like mine, it's really, really nice. So that's pretty much going to be it. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little bit more in depth than what some of you were maybe looking for, but overall, I'm really pleased with the results. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys can get along with a 3080 just fine and not a 3090 whenever the 3080s become available. And if you like the video, please go ahead and give a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys on the next DJ tutorials.